כן, השידור התחיל. אוקיי. אז אנחנו בפרשת Behaalotcha. I forgot how to speak English. So we're in the portion of Behaalotcha, which means when to rise or to raise you. And Hashem commands Aaron to light the menorah in the Mishkan every day. And the menorah was made entirely of pure gold from one piece. It wasn't welded from parts. And it had seven branches. It had the base, and then there were six branches on one side and three on one side and three on the other side. So altogether there were six and one in the middle. Okay, it's not like the menorah that we light Hanukkah that has 8. This in the Beit HaMikdash in the Mishkan it was only 7 lights. And Hashem tells Aaron, that when you cause the lights to ascend. And there are many teachings on this pasuk, and one of them is that first of all you have to wait, like Rashi tells us, wait till the flame rises on its own. In other words, many times when you try to light a candle, you have to wait till it catches onto the wick. It takes time till the wick catches on, and then it can light on its own. So that's Aaron's job, is to light the flame until it lights on its own. I'll explain what we learned from that too. But what happened was in the beginning, just to give you a background, Aaron didn't bring a dedication offering just like all the other heads of the tribes brought. The Nisi'im, they all brought a Chanukah Habayit. They brought a dedication offering to the sanctuary, and Aaron didn't. And he thought maybe it's because of me that Hashem doesn't accept the tribe of Levi, because there were 12 tribes, 2 sons of Yosef, Ephraim and Manasseh. That's 12. So there were 12 tribes that brought a dedication, and Aaron didn't. The Levium didn't. So he thought maybe it's because of me. So Hashem calms him down and he says to Moshe, "Go tell Aaron, don't worry. There's a special job in store for you, and the honor of this job is even greater than the offerings that they brought for the dedication." Why? Because the offerings are only there as long as the temple stands. But the menorah, the lights of the candles that you light, will always give light. And here we have a hint that, because we say that when the sanctuary was destroyed, or the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, where there was destruction of the Holy Temple, so they didn't light the menorah anymore. So what did he mean? So here we have a sort of a hint for the Hanukkah lights. That the Hanukkah lights that happened after the second temple, the second Beis HaMikdash, by the Hashmonaim, the descendants of Aaron, because they were Kohanim, will never cease. And here we have Hanukkah for generations to come. And we light, and the candles are lit. Usually when a person builds a house, so he makes the windows narrow on the outside and wider on the inside, because you want the light to come in, right? But here when King Solomon built the Holy Temple, he made the windows narrow inside and wide on the outside, because the purpose of this sanctuary was to light up the world, to illuminate outside. So it was just the opposite. What do we learn from it when he says, when you raise the light? So a lamplighter has, like I said, he has to hold the flame until the wick catches on its own. And the spiritual significance of this is that everyone should be a lamplighter, and everyone has this mission of igniting we say the soul. Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. Every soul is like a candle, and sometimes you need somebody to light it. So how long do you have to light it until it lights on its own? So in other words, you bring a person closer to the Torah, you bring him closer to Yiddishkeit, you teach him, and you don't let him go until you know he's on his own. And that's kindling the lamps, the flames, and influencing the people around you, influencing your fellow Jews, people who are close to you, your friends, anybody. And somebody once said, the Rebbe once said to somebody, he gave you the match, like everyone has the potential to light on its own. Every soul is the potential light. But sometimes you need an extra, you need somebody to, doesn't always catch on right away. Sometimes you light the candles on Shabbos, you see sometimes it took to do it again. But that's what we do until it illuminates. And not only will it illuminate for itself independently, but it will light up potentially others. And this is what the Lubavitcher Rebbe taught us as far as the Behaalotcha.
How did he say? I gave you
the match, yeah, and now and you can light your soul. In other words, you have the strength now to light up your soul, and when your soul is lit, then you illuminate people around you, and you can light up others. The interesting thing is that that the Kohen, he comes to the Beit HaMikdash to kindle the menorah every day, and he finds that everything was prepared for him. In other words, earlier in the day, the Kohanim they cleaned the lamps, and they filled it with oil, and they put in fresh wicks, and all he had to do was bring the flame that he carried and light it. So, in other words, that everybody has the potential. Everybody's ready to be lit. Everyone is a candle, and this is the lesson that don't think that what you're achieving something that your fellow can't. That don't think that you're giving him something that he doesn't already possess. He has it. You're not giving him something that he doesn't have. Because the soul of your fellow Jew is a ready lamp, and it's filled with the purest oil, and it's equipped with everything that it needs to turn into a blazing flame. Like it can light up the world. The only thing it's missing is another light to ignite him. So if your own soul is lit up and it comes in contact with another soul, it's going to awaken this potential light, and it will light up other souls. It's like one candle, echad lemeah, ner echad lemeah. One candle could light up many candles, and you don't diminish anything of yourself. You're just adding light. Okay, so that's the idea of our mission in life is to light up the souls. That's what they say. A chassid. They used to call them the lamplighters. They were lamplighters when they didn't have electricity in the streets. So there was somebody who had a job of being the lamplighter, and he would walk around and ignite these, light these lamps. So there should be light. And he would go into the darkest alleys, and he would go to even where people didn't walk. And he would say that's what a chassid is called, a panasai, a lamplighter. And this is our job, to light up the souls of people around us wherever we go. Now we continue in the portion, and we see that the Leviim were given their duties in the Mishkan. They had a special job, and in order to serve Hashem in the Mishkan, they had to go through a process of purification. So Hashem tells Moshe to sprinkle the water of purification, which is the water from the parah adumah, from the red heifer. And then he tells them to wash their clothes and to shave their hair. And they bring two offerings, two karbanot, a bull for karban olah, and a sin offering. and they bring it together with grain mixed with oil. Now, because they are taking the place of the firstborn, if you remember, the firstborn were the ones who originally were designated for the holy service, but they sinned with the golden calf, and so Hashem gave the Levites this job in place of the firstborn. So this whole process, the Kohen Aaron has to, it's like we learned about the offerings where you have to wave them back and forth. So each Levite was an offering. He would have to wave them. It was like a whole ceremony where he lifted them up and down and to the right and to the left. Imagine 23,000 Levites he has to wave. It probably wasn't an easy job, but they are like, it's a formal beginning, formal entrance into the they're serving Hashem, and they are, like I said, they're instead of the firstborn. They also brought offerings together with this whole ceremony, and they would put their hands on the bull, and this whole process that went on, and then they become the Levites serve Hashem. This is their job. They don't have their own property. They were given. Remember, we spoke about this, that they were given properties, and there was like a whole shifts. They had shifts where every 2 weeks they would change the shift, and they would stay in the sanctuary and work from there. Okay, now 2 weeks after this dedication, after each, we said for 12 days, each one brought their dedication sacrifice. So Hashem tells them to bring up, this is like after the first year after they left Egypt. Okay. So he tells them to bring the Korban Pesach, the Passover offering. And he tells them to eat it with matzah and not to eat chametz. And this is interesting. It's the only time during the 40 years that they were in the desert that they brought a Passover sacrifice. And the question that is asked over here is, this happened the first month of the year, and the Chumash begins with the second month. So why isn't, so first of all, the Torah teaches us that en mukdam u'meuchar b'Torah, it's not a chronological order. That many times the Torah switches the order of things because it's not a history book. It's meant to teach us something. But here the question is, why does the book of why doesn't he begin this Chumash? Why in the beginning doesn't he start with this chapter? This happened first. Like why? What's the reason that he switches the order? We start off with the second month, and here this is the first month. This is Rosh Chodesh. All of a sudden we're going backwards in time, and we're going to Rosh Chodesh Nisan. And the reason is because it's not a compliment for the Jews that they didn't bring a korban, because the 40 years that they were in the desert, this was the only Passover offering. So you could question and say, why was it? Why didn't they bring a Passover offering all these years? And the reason is because they were impure. Why were they impure? They did not circumcise their children. There are many reasons, but one of the reasons is they didn't circumcise their children. Why didn't they circumcise their children? Because they were always on the run. Like whenever the cloud would move, they had to pack up. They would undo the whole Mishkan, and they would travel. When the cloud stopped, so they would park. So sometimes it was 1 day, sometimes it was 2 days, maybe it was a month. There was a time when it was 19 years. They were in Kadesh Barnea for 19 years. They didn't move. Mm-hmm. But they had no idea. They had to be ready because in any minute the cloud could go. So how can you circumcise your child and put him in danger? They say the first 3 days are very serious. So if they just had a circumcision and then you have to move, so they didn't do it. And there were other reasons why they didn't weren't able to bring because they were impure. And then you could say that, do you remember the story where um, the group of men who were impure at this time with the Passover, Korban Pesach, where they came to Moshe and Aaron, they said, like, why should we be excluded? They were busy burying Aharon and carrying Joseph's bones from Egypt, so they were impure. They had to bury him. So they couldn't purify themselves in time to bring the Passover offering. So they said, why should we miss out on this opportunity? We want to also fulfill this mitzvah like everybody else. And Moshe said he doesn't know. He'll ask Hashem. So he goes to ask Hashem, and Hashem says, yes, they deserve it. Pesach Sheni. That's why we have the second opportunity. It's the second Pesach, which was a month later. And anyone who's impure because they were too far away, they couldn't get there in time, and or they were impure and they couldn't purify themselves in time, they can have a second chance, and they can bring this Passover offering on Yud Daled of the next month. But they could eat it with chametz, and like we do now. You could eat it with chametz, and you eat matzah. What we do now is we eat matzah. So first of all, the second Passover teaches us that it's never too late. There's always a chance. But the question is, why wasn't the mitzvah of the second Passover commanded directly by Hashem in the Torah? Why didn't he originally say, anyone who can't, why did they have to come to Moshe? Moshe didn't know, and he has to ask Hashem. There were two instances that this happened also with Benot Tzalafchan, the daughters of Tzalafchan, remember? Mm-hmm. And they said, we also want a portion, and we're only girls, and he's dividing the land, the boys. So they said, and Moshe didn't know, and he said, I'll ask Hashem. And then again, Hashem said, they're right, and they get a portion. So this is the second time. So in a different order, but anyway, so why wasn't it in the first place? From the beginning, we should know. Because the second Passover represents the power of tshuva. That is the power to return, and you can fix what you didn't do right in the first place. You can rectify your past failings, you can transform them, you can fix it retroactively and turn them into zchuyot, into merits. And this the Torah cannot tell you, because the Torah tells you what to do, what Hashem wants. And it can't tell you, well, if you fail, because the Torah tells you to do something positive. This is what you should do. You shouldn't fall back. I mean, there's no reason why you shouldn't do what Hashem says. But if for some reason a person falls and he fails, so he comes and he says, okay, I want to connect to Hashem. I don't agree to stay where I am. I want to fix it. And it comes from a deep place inside, and he really wants to connect to Hashem. So Hashem tells us that there's always a way. Never is it
Pesach is
Pesach Sheni tells
Nisan.
Pesach, and the first Pesach is Yud Daled Nisan, and Pesach Sheni is Yud Daled Iyar, the next month. So we know that it's never too late. Now the Torah tells us in this parsha of how the traveling took place. So there was a cloud that went with them, that was above them every day, during the day. And at night, there was a pillar of fire. So then again, like I said, when the cloud lifted, so the Israelis, they knew that they had to pack up, fold everything up, undo everything, and travel. Whenever the cloud would stop, it would stop over the, the first ones to travel was Yehuda, the flag of Yehuda. They were the first ones to go. It was Yehuda and Yisachar and Zvulun. Remember, we mentioned about how they traveled. So whenever the cloud would start, like it would rise, it would start with the tribe of Yehuda, and then Moshe would blow the trumpets. And he would say, the Kohanim would blow the trumpets. The Kohanim, he made the trumpets, but the Kohanim would blow them. And he would say, Kuma Hashem. This is what we say when we take out the Sefer Torah from the. This is what Moshe said, and then when the cloud rested, he would say Shuva Hashem, and then it didn't matter how many days or how many weeks or how many years they camped in a certain place, but they went according to the movements of the cloud. So what are these trumpets all about? So Hashem told Moshe that he should make 2 silver trumpets. Why did he make them out of silver and not gold? Gold was more expensive than silver, right? But the gold would remind them of the golden calf. And nobody wants to be reminded of the sin of the golden calf. So he said to make it out of silver. Now, these two trumpets had different missions, like they had different signs. How? So first of all, they used the trumpets to gather the whole nation. And then they would only use one trumpet. When he wanted to gather, they would do 2 trumpets. And if he wanted to gather just the leaders of the tribes, he would use only one. And then there was a certain, there's a tkiyah and there's a truah. The truah was used only, when they had to move, when they had to travel. So the trumpets, so if they would make a tkiyah, everybody would come gather together, and they knew that Moshe wants to gather them together. If he wanted to have a meeting with the heads of the tribes, he would just use one trumpet. And if they had to travel, he would use both trumpets, and he would do tkiyah, truah, and tkiyah. They also used the trumpets when they went out to war. And they also used the trumpets on joyous occasions, like festivals, like Chagim, Rosh Chodesh. And only the Kohanim were allowed to blow the trumpets. So we have like this, that let's say they're going on a journey now, that the cloud lifts itself. So there's a signal, the cloud lifts, and the Kohanim blow the trumpets. They do the tkiyah, truah, tkiyah. Then the cloud goes over the tribe of Yehudah, and they're the ones who lead. Yehudah is the first flag, like I said, Yisachar and Zvulun. Then Aaron and the priests, they folded up all the vessels and they covered them. And they remember that each one had their task of who carries what. Gershon, Kahat, and Merari, they were divided into 3 families, and each family had different things to carry. So after the Aaron and the priest covered the vessels of the tabernacle, the Gershon and Merari would they would dismantle like the walls and the curtains. Each one had their share of what they had to carry. The Aaron they would carry over their shoulders, that they weren't allowed to put in the agalot, in the wagons. Then Reuven, Shimon, and Gad would follow. And then the Kahat would carry the ark, the menorah, and the table, those that they carried on their shoulders. Then came the tribe of Ephraim, Manasseh, and Binyamin. And then Dan and Asher and Naphtali were at the back. It says Dan was the big tribe, and they were Dan Hama'asefet Kol HaMachanot. If anybody left anything, they would pick up all the lost and found. They were the ones who were the last. And then when they stopped to camp, so Gershon and Merari would set up the Mishkan in advance, so that when the Kehatim came with the Aron and with the table and the menorah, so it was all ready to be able to put in. And that's how they traveled. Like they stopped 42 masaot. They had 42 stops. And the Baal Shem Tov tells us that every Jew has 42 journeys in his life. We all go through, this, and it doesn't mean that it has to be in different places. It doesn't mean it has to be in different ends of the world, but 42 journeys can mean things that you go through in life, and these are the things that bring you closer to the Geula. This is a personal Geula, personal redemption, and then the total rejection. So now we go ahead and we see this interesting thing in this portion is that before they leave this Mount Sinai, so Moshe begs his father-in-law Yisro, remember, that he came, and he begs him to join their journey to Israel. And Yitro says that he wants to return to his homeland, and Moshe tries to convince him, but and he because he appreciated the role that he played, in among the people, and he wants him to share God's blessings, but he goes back, and then they go on their journey, and like we see that Moshe says Kuma Hashem, and they start their journey, and when he says Shuva, they stop their journey. And now there are always people that are complaining. Always amongst the Jews, you have those, whether they have a good reason, they don't have a good reason. It's difficult, traveling in the desert, and Hashem gets angry at them again, and then and Moshe has to pray for them, for Hashem's mercy to save them. And the place that that he prays for them is called, there's one Taveira, where the fire burns, Kivrot Ta'ava, which is where they wanted meat, they weren't happy with the man, and the man could taste like anything, but
they want
it's an interesting thing that I saw. Why wouldn't they be happy if you had a food that would taste like whatever you want? So it was interesting. It says like this, that a person has pleasure from material things when he can compare them to what his neighbors have. So even though he could enjoy every taste that he wants in a man, but he didn't get pleasure from it because everybody had it. This is what Yonatan Eibshitz. Yonatan Eibshitz was very smart, and that's what he says. Why they weren't happy? You want something different. You want to enjoy. This is yours. So
I heard the people that they are billionaires,
and they're not happy.
They are not happy.
That's right.
They all the time in
looking for more. You need
something else, something
right.
that fill them.
Yeah. So here, so they want meat, and they're not happy with the man, and Hashem turns to and Moshe gets also frustrated, and this is I can't do this alone, and so Hashem tells Moshe, appoint 70 elders, the Shivim Skinim, and he appoints the 70 elders to help him lead. And then there are two, Eldad and Medad, that start saying Nivuah, they start saying prophecy. And Yoshua was very worried because Eldad and Medad, these are two of the 70 elders. Eldad and Medad. And Yoshua says he was worried for Moshe's honor, and he comes to tell them, they're saying Nivuah, maybe we should quiet silence them. And Moshe says, no, it's good. They could say Nivuah, and that didn't bother him. And then Hashem gave them a meat, and they all ate very greedily. And while they're in the middle of eating, Hashem made this was Kivrot Ta'ava. It started a plague, and many people were killed at that time. Towards the end of the portion, we have Miriam speaking Lashon Hara. She is critical of her brother Moshe because he split up from his wife Tzipporah. And He did because Hashem told him to. So she's questioning why did he do that? And she shouldn't have spoken bad about him. And so, Moshe is Eved Ne'eman, he does whatever Hashem tells him to do. So Miriam gets tzara, as we say when everybody speaks Lashon Hara. This is the punishment for slandering, for speaking bad about her brother. And then Aaron begs Moshe to pray for her. And Moshe gives the shortest prayer ever. He says, Kel na refana la, 5 words. And then, please heal her. Kel na refana la. Kel is Hashem. I don't want to say Hashem's name, but Aleph and Alam. We say Kel instead of saying, like we say, Toda la Kel. Just like you don't want to say Hashem's name, you say, Kel na refana la. Heal her. And Hashem tells her to be isolated for 7 days outside the camp. And the whole nation waits for her till she gets rid of this tzaraat, and then they continue on their journey. And this is the end of the portion. This is how it ends. So first of all, we learn, don't speak Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is never leads to good, never. And that's why we have teeth and the lips. We have two sha'arim, 2 gates. And my lips are sealed, we say, what you don't say, you're never sorry for what you don't say. And words that you say, it says chetz shachut, it's like an arrow, that you shoot an arrow, you could say, oh, I'm so sorry, but you can never return it. You can't, the arrow won't come back. So you always have to think before you say anything. And because words can harm. When we were kids, they used to say, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never harm me. But I don't think that's true. I think that words harm a lot more than sticks and stones.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's deeper inside. I don't know where that came from. I used to say, words won't harm you. Say whatever you want. But they can definitely harm.
The words are...
And we see it today. It's
worse than knives.
Especially now with the social media, how many children committed suicide because of
the words,
nasty words that were said about them, and they couldn't bear with it. We have to be so careful and say it doesn't cost money to say a good word, and to
look at the
good side.
The good side.
Never judge a person before you're in their shoes. Right? And think, like, if I was in their place, would I be as good as them? Maybe not.
You cannot
Never
tell
know.
this.
Never
You
know.
cannot tell this because you don't know how your mind is reacting.
That's right. And in what kind of a test they're going through.
Yeah.
And the thing is that we could say then they had a yetzer hara, they had an evil inclination for idol worshiping, and that Hashem took away. But now it's Lashon Hara is like one of the biggest idol worshiping, because how many times do we have a conversation and we don't realize how we drift into Lashon Hara? And when we say Avodah Zara, means idol worshiping, means that it's zar, it's something that it's not for the service of Hashem. Anything that's not for the service of Hashem is Avodah Zara. So this is something we have to work on, and hopefully bring Mashiach really quick.
We need it.
We need it, yeah. So it will be very, very soon.
I heard the news, and every day